Good morning, Green Spring. Today is Tuesday, April 30th. I'm Elke Martin, your host, and we have a great program for you today. We will talk about healthy eating, and I have two guests that I want to introduce to you. Susan Levine,
Levin.
There we go.
The third choice.
Never know. Susan Levine and Minh Nguyen, and you are from the Physicians Committee of Responsible Medicine, which is an important organization as far as I know, but you tell us what it's all about. I think PCRM has existed for a long time, right?
Yes, so PCRM was founded, over 30 years ago now, by a physician named Dr. Neil Barnard, who decided that some elements of conversation were missing from medicine, and most importantly, the conversation about nutrition and nutrition's role in health and prevention. So he got together a small group of other like-minded doctors to start a committee, so thus the name was born. Of course, now it's much more than a committee. It is a nonprofit organization with over 175,000 members, 12,000 or so of whom are still physicians, but other people are lay people who are interested in health, dietitians like me and men, nurses, so just you as a member,
people.
That's right.
I should disclose that I am a member.
Regular, highly intelligent people are members because they care. They care about health and are interested in this conversation about nutrition. Yeah.
And I know that the organization has had a number of successes over the years as it has grown.
Sure.
Can you highlight some of them for us?
Gosh, sure. Well, I mean,
You've been around for a while, right?
I have. I've worked there. This is my 14th year at PCRM, and we've had. We run the gamut of different issues. We're based in Washington, D.C., so we do a lot of legislative work. And we see patients, we do clinical trials, we write papers, we give resources to the public so they can learn more about eating well. We give resources to other clinicians who are interested in nutrition for health. But I would certainly put some of our big wins as well, publishing papers that get into peer-reviewed journals so that we can educate medical professionals about diet and health. And that really is the primary way to get that message out there to other clinicians. Of course, from there, most lay people don't read medical journals. They're not that entertaining. But we get those papers published, they're peer-reviewed, and then media picks it up, campaigns come out of that. Sometimes there are campaigns that we create so that people understand how nutrition plays a role in health. And then hopefully, again, the clinicians will get that message and talk to their patients about diet and health and how there is this option of lifestyle choices, if you will, for curing their hypertension, heart disease, diabetes, helping to prevent cancer recurrence, survive cancer. So we want this conversation to be big. So when we get papers published, that's a big win for us. On the legislative side, we've gotten certain bills passed in state levels. We've gotten some lawsuits that have gone in our favor when we feel like the government is overstepping or putting industry before people.
For example?
Well, for example, in the 90s, we had a lawsuit against the USDA because the Department of Agriculture, which is a huge department in DC that manages two things that are a little bit contradictory to each other. One thing is to promote agriculture. So their job, and the reason the USDA exists, right, is to promote farmers and get people to eat more products from farms. But later on in their existence, they were tasked with the job of offering nutrition guidelines, nutrition advice. So they tend to, sometimes they don't mix well at all.
Well, because these days, oftentimes farms are large industrial
there's that,
complexes, right? Rather than the little family farms.
We're not. It's not Farmer Joe who's struggling and needs the USDA's help. Nowadays, it's huge industry corporations. But it's also knowing more about nutrition as nutrition has grown as a science, and knowing that, hey, maybe it's not that great that people eat meat or cheese or dairy products. However, down the hall, the same organization's trying to get people to eat more meat and cheese and dairy products. So they contradict each other. Anyway, long story, the committee that decides those kind of nutrition rules had at one point been so overtly industry staffed that we filed a lawsuit and it was found in our favor. You're right, it was overly staffed with industry interest, and now in ensuing iterations of these guidelines, they've been much more transparent about who these people are. It's not to say that they aren't kind of wrought with industry influence still, but it's much more transparent. We're able, as is anyone, able to kind of see where some of these.
So at least you know now.
At least you know, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's another example of a big win, just kind of playing a check on some of what the government's doing.
I read in a magazine from PCRM recently, I think it was recently, that school meals in California have been influenced by your work. Isn't that correct?
Yeah,
I thought that was impressive.
Yeah, so we do a lot of work with school food, a lot of industry food, whether it's hospitals, schools, even prisons, trying to get healthier food options in there, whether it's by choice, or such as in a prison where there's not that much choice, or even in schools there's not that much choice for kids, but just having the option of something healthy and plant-based for kids in schools. And even in California, we got a success so far as to get the governor to say yes, as a law. It is the law now that hospitals and prisons have to have a plant-based option on the menu for every meal if someone wants to choose that meal, and that processed meat products are not going to be on those menus anymore because of processed meats linked to cancer. So
cancer causing, I believe, right?
Cancer causing. So processed meat products have been deemed by, among many studies, but also collectively by a couple of organizations, including the World Health Organization, who said processed meats are a group 1 carcinogen.
Really?
So that's the group like tobacco, asbestos, where it's just clear. It's clear it causes cancer. They know that. So what can you do but put it in a group 1 category? Red meat was in a group 2, so it probably is carcinogen. It's likely to cause cancer. But at any rate, so knowing that and having that kind of information, I think California made a good decision to say, well, how could you serve this in a hospital?
Yeah.
If a free living adult wants to buy hot dogs and sausage and bacon and eat it, that's up to him or her, but we're not going to be serving it in our hospitals anymore, which was a pretty big victory.
Yes, I think that's quite impressive.
Yeah, we hope to see that in more places.
But I also think it's important for our listeners and viewers to hear that it's all about choice, if I hear you correctly.
Oh, that's right.
You are not here to tell us stop eating X, Y, and Z, but rather here are the choices, and if you look at it, you can know what you're putting into your body.
That's right.
And I still make the decision what I'm going to eat.
Yeah, so imagine being in a hospital where maybe you had a heart attack, so that's clearly a lifestyle, most times a lifestyle result of poor eating habits, for example. To get into a hospital where the menu is all terrible food, I mean, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. So I think the state made the right decision in saying, all right, you have to have a healthy plant-based option for every meal for people who want to live by that code of prevention and survival.
Well, I think it's really an interesting example, because often I understand California as like a trendsetter in these things.
A little bit ahead.
So
usually a little bit ahead.
Expect changes in other parts of the country too.
I hope so.
Now you said you were a dietitian. Is that what you said? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure.
And then I also want to hear from Minh, who's just been sitting there being beautiful.
So nice. I know.
We want to hear from you too.
That's his job. Just kidding. He's smart too, as it turns out. So I'm a registered dietitian. And
you have a lot of alphabet soup behind your name. What does all that mean?
It means more to me than the world probably, but I have a master's in science, registered dietitian, and then I'm also a certified specialist in sports dietetics, which is just a niche.
That's what that means.
Yeah.
Specialized.
I have a special.
Sports. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I became a registered dietitian after many years of kind of being interested in nutrition. I was a journalism major, working in New York City, and very into nutrition and how it affected my health, and watching other people, especially in New York City. Most of the people were on antacids for stomach upset and a lot of anxiety pills, and because of
really? Because at high stress level?
Yeah, I think so. And I would often be like, have you thought about changing your diet? And I'm like, well, who are you? Why would you? So I thought I need some credentials. I need some alphabet
Yes.
soup after my name, so I
Yeah.
can talk about this with some expertise, hopefully. And I started all over. 6 more years of school in
6
my 30s.
years.
Yeah.
Okay.
So late to the game.
Determination.
I know. I was very determined. And then got my license and found PCRM. I didn't know. I was like, well, I actually follow a vegan diet, so I don't eat any animal products at all. I don't promote animal products. Where am I going to find a job as a vegan dietitian? I really just thought I was going to be doing counseling or something to the 5 people that would listen to me. But I found PCRM, who believed everything I believed and had the science to back it up.
So there are more than 5 vegans?
There's more than 5
Amazing.
vegans. I know, and dietitians too. And I think as dietitians, because we do look at nutrition science in school and then as part of the job, like a lot of us do kind of veer towards vegetarian and vegan because we see what it means.
Yeah. And like in any field, that's what I've learned in my life. Once you know something, you can't pretend you don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there was a time before I became a dietitian where I read more about avoiding animal products, and some of it I was like, I don't want to hear it. And then I finally,
Yes,
I heard it.
Actually,
Yeah.
yes, I get that a lot as
Right?
as a response when we talk about what do you eat, what don't you eat.
Yeah.
Why don't you order this wonderful rotisserie chicken or whatever they offer here at Green Spring, and we get into conversations.
Yeah, I
And,
bet.
yeah,
a lot of
people-
conversations.
Yeah,
And it's very
yeah, which is
personal.
good.
Yeah, but it's personal. It's like somebody
sure.
compared what you eat to your religion and your politics. So it's touchy.
It is, yeah.
Sensitive
And,
area.
You have to really be, you're right, you have to really be careful that you don't offend people, which is never the intention.
No. I mean, as a dietitian, the reason I'm into this whole way of eating is because I know what it does. I know how it turns people's lives around. I know what it did for me. I hear stories every day, all day, about how it's changed people's lives because, they had diabetes, now they don't have diabetes. They had heart disease, now they don't have heart disease. I hear
Well,
this.
we want to hear more about that, but really
know.
briefly, tell me,
Yeah.
what did it do for you? You said you know what it did
Well,
for
for
you.
me, I was kind of a standard overweight American in her 20s. I just had dieted my whole life because that's what every woman in my family did.
Yes.
Didn't know much about eating healthy. I grew up in Alabama. Our diets were pretty tragic, right? It's kind of a one-way road to whatever's going to kill you. And so, it was a big change for me. And once I started eating this way, I just naturally got healthy. I got fit. I started running. I had more energy. And I don't diet anymore. I just eat healthy food. So all that part of my life that was so stressful, my whole life, and watching my mom and my grandma, every female in my family sort of struggle with weight and food issues. It's just not part of my life anymore, which I treasure that.
Yeah. It's a real switch in thinking, isn't it?
Completely.
Isn't that where I heard an NPR story not long ago about young women in the south of the States who are called healthy when they're about 300 pounds.
Right. I mean, our whole
So, you grow up with a completely different value system.
Yeah,
right?
what's healthy
Yeah.
and what isn't healthy,
Yeah.
and it's starting to look normal to be overweight. Like
Yeah.
overweight looks normal to us.
Right.
And maybe and you go to Asia, and I lived in China for a while, and I'd have to catch myself like, oh, that person looks really skinny. It's like, nope, that person is probably exactly where he or she needs to be. It's just not the way Americans look.
Well, Asia, perfect keyword. Thank you. To go over to Minh. You are also here as a registered dietitian,
That's
right?
right.
Tell
Yes.
us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm born and raised in Houston.
Houston.
That's right,
so,
Houston,
so
Texas.
much for Asia.
Yeah.
But my parents are both immigrants from Vietnam. So
Uh-huh.
I grew up in a Vietnamese American household and also as a Texan. So grew up just eating a lot of meat. Vietnamese, we eat a lot of different pork, chicken, beef, fish,
Yes.
like everything. And of course Texan, eating a lot of red meat.
Yes.
Especially. And I got into nutrition, studied that starting in 2013. I had finished my bachelor's in biochemistry, molecular biology, and I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do, but I found nutrition because I wanted to prevent, do preventive kind of medicine, right?
Uh-huh.
Prevent people from going to the hospital in the first place, prevent them from having to take that pill.
Yes.
And I saw nutrition as a way to do that. So I went back to school after being out for like about a year or so, and I got into a dietetic internship at Texas Women's University in Houston, Texas, and I did my rotations at different hospitals there, in clinics, the food bank, and just I did that. I have also experience after that in political organizing, working on issue-based campaigns and also electoral campaigns as well, presidential, congressional races. So, yeah.
So you wanted to be knowledgeable, use nutrition as a means to reach people to have better quality of life? Is that what you said?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
And I saw what it did, like for my own health, how much more energy I got, and just the overwhelming body of evidence, scientific evidence for plant-based nutrition, how it can prevent and in some cases reverse or major chronic illnesses that we face in this nation. The top killers, right? Heart disease, type 2 diabetes, stroke, and some cancers.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting that you bring that up with the reversing illnesses, because I'm not sure how much that knowledge is out there that nutrition is that powerful. You know, I came to think about this through a different avenue because of my work for Greenpeace, and then because I'm interested in my own health.
Yes.
And I feel that there is so little in life that I can control, but I sure can control what I put into my body. So I started thinking about that and learning about that. But being sick and then thinking that nutrition could actually have a role in reversing that is a different level of thinking about nutrition, I find. Can you speak more to that? Give an example of that?
Yes. Well, for example, as mentioned earlier, when a patient, right, sees a doctor and diagnosed with some kind of ailment, maybe type 2 diabetes, often presented with different options, right? Like maybe take this pill, take this drug, or maybe perform this surgery. But often plants, right? A diet isn't an option that is given. So you don't maybe have a choice, right? Because not all the choices are presented to you. And a lot of times maybe the doctor, he or she may not know about the power of plants, right? Because medical education in the United States lack nutrition. Many doctors have if any nutrition education.
That's
what
I've heard.
practice.
I'm glad you say that. I've heard doctors say, I've had 6 years of schooling and about 10 minutes of that was on nutrition.
Yes.
And that nutrition is usually vitamin C prevents scurvy. It's like, great, we're not pirates anymore. You know, we need to deal with the diseases we're actually suffering from now, not what we might have suffered from.
So do you have some examples of stories that you know of real people who had diabetes or heart disease that you mentioned before, and now it's all different because of nutrition?
I mean, because we do clinical trials in our office, we see that, and now we have a primary care clinic as well. But the clinical trials have been incredibly educational, because what you have are a population of people with a similar disease. So let's say it's type 2 diabetes, and they come in. Talk about being motivated to change your diet is when you have type 2 diabetes and maybe you've had it for a decade and your vision is sort of going and you have peripheral nerve damage. Maybe you've even lost a foot because the disease has been so devastating. And then to have someone tell you, well, you could change your diet, and guess what? It's not so much about slowing the progression of the disease anymore. It's about actually reversing the disease. And
how could anybody believe that? I mean, we hear all over the place, take this pill, take that pill, right? You want to watch the news. Half of that half-hour news is for ads, and many of the ads are for this medication and that medication. But like you said, Minh, nobody talks about, eat a carrot or whatever it may be. People come to you and they are already sick, like you said, and have serious effects of type 2 diabetes, and you say change your nutrition. Is that credible to anybody?
I mean, that's the thing. They're open to hearing it because they're sort of
They're suffering.
They're suffering.
Yeah.
And it would be one thing if we just said it and said, now go home for 4 months and come back and tell us how it's going, but we don't. We meet with them every week, and talk about changing their diet, and it's a clinical trial, so they're sort of obligated to do what we say. They have agreed to that.
Yeah.
And then they see every week they come back, and most people with type 2 have some weight to lose, so they're losing their weight, and that's an obvious change right away, lower blood pressure. But then when they see how their blood sugars change and what's a measurement of diabetes that's called A1C over time is getting better. And then some people, their vision gets better, their nerve damage.
Really?
Yeah, it's unbelievable the power.
That is powerful, right?
So we don't need to sell it after a couple of weeks because they're living it.
Yeah.
And then they'll go, some of them go see their doctors who have been their doctors since the diagnosis of the disease, and the doctor's like, if I didn't know you, if you walked into my office today, I wouldn't even know you had diabetes. Imagine how inspiring but also infuriating that is as a person who's been suffering and taking medications for years.
Right,
to be like,
lost a foot, been on this pill for 20 years.
Right. Why didn't anyone tell me this before? Mm-hmm. Like, we're trying. That's why we're doing these clinical trials. We're really trying to get this message to the clinicians so that their patients aren't hearing about it. Lucky they heard it at all, but hearing about it later. Sooner than later is better.
So that brings me to a different question. You say that you have seen all these examples of people reversing a disease, or at least not making it worse, right? Progress. Does that apply to any age? I mean, we're dealing here at Greenspring with people who, in some conversations, have said to me, I've been eating like this for 85 years. Are you kidding? You want me to? I don't want them to, but I should change my eating now, because they probably think it's a bit late.
It's never too late. Again, we never have age limit. We can't be too young, but age limits with people who are in our trials, and we see success. It's just never too late. I mean, it's never too early to change your diet either, but it's certainly, you read these stories, these documented medical journal stories, not anecdotal, where people over a certain age will reverse the plaque that has been forming in their arteries, probably since they were teenagers, right?
Yes.
I mean, we're all kind of progressing towards heart attacks, unfortunately, in this country, but people who adopt this diet after basically being told, you can either have a stent or you can have a heart attack, those types of people who are, no, wait, let's work on your diet, and then suddenly the plaque starts to disappear. Things that you don't even know you could do with diet, the power that diet had until in the past 20 years or so.
Yeah. I think Dean Ornish was one of the first doctors, right, in California.
First one to publish those kinds of findings, and there's Dr. Esselstyn at the Cleveland Clinic who has done some publications about people. He would get the patients that the cardiologist would say, you have about 2 months to live. He would get those patients, and they would come to him and they would change their diets, and he would see unbelievable results in terms of plaque formation.
That's really astounding, isn't it? That it still is such a secret.
Yeah.
Now, we've been talking, and it's great, but I don't want to end this show before you show us what you brought here.
Okay.
If you can hold it up and not wiggle. So that the camera can catch it.
Yeah. So this is our power plate. So this is the type of recommendation we make, which is to eat your fruits, vegetables, beans, and grains. We don't put any portion control or calorie counting on any of the studies I've talked about, but certainly for anyone, eat as much of this healthful food as you want and in as pure form as possible, so more whole foods than processed foods.
So this looks different from the plate,
the government
that
plate.
The government gives out.
It is a little bit different. I will say ours came out in 2009. Theirs came out in 2011, I believe. So I'm just saying. Yeah. But ours does not have the dairy satellite.
You don't have the glass of milk
No
next
glass
to
of
it.
milk. No, dairy didn't pay us all that money, so we're not putting milk
And
in
how
it.
about, well, that's another point that you can briefly mention. I think PCRM doesn't take any money from industry, isn't that correct?
We don't take any money from industry. Yeah, certainly not. We have had grants. We had an NIH grant for one of our
Yeah.
diabetes studies, but no. Yeah, and when we host conferences where they are non-commercial, and even our primary care clinic is nonprofit.
And so the 4 parts of your plate.
Yeah, and fruits, grains, vegetables, and legumes, peas,
Yes.
beans, lentils, instead of the mysterious protein
Yes.
group that doesn't make a whole lot of sense because all these foods have protein in them. But
Yes. But legumes have probably more, or some of them, or maybe all of them, I don't know, have more protein than fruit.
that's true. Like
And
if you
maybe less sugar. So you still have to watch out, right? Not to eat
no
too much.
We really, if you're
Oh,
eating,
really?
I mean, we wouldn't say drink gallons of orange juice, but we would
Yeah.
say eat as many oranges as you want, and that is what we say. We tell people again with diabetes who are watching their blood sugar, eat as much as you want of these foods. Just
Really?
don't adulterate them, and don't drown them in oils or other high-fat processed products either. Yeah.
So you are warning, so to speak, warning people of processed foods.
Well, most importantly, get away from the animal products. And-
Because
that's where the bulk of saturated fat, that's the bad fat that leads to all these diseases, is.
well, what about skinless, boneless chicken breast?
Even that is about 23% of its calories from fat, and we're promoting a diet that is around 10 to 15% of its calories from fat. So chicken, boneless, skinless, white, still wouldn't fit into
It's
the
still
program.
too much fat.
It's still too much fat.
Who knew?
I
Yeah.
know, I'm telling
And
you.
then,
Now
okay,
you know.
okay.
Now you know.
And how about salmon? They always talk about salmon, and it's that healthy fat or something.
Well,
omega something.
It's even twice as much fat. Like Chinook salmon is about 60% calories from fat. So again, how
twice as much as the chicken,
as the
which
chicken.
is too much.
Yeah, it's more than
Oh,
beef.
man,
I'm
we're
sorry.
doomed.
No, you're not doomed because you can eat all of these foods. Very few plant foods have more than 10% of its calories from fat. Exceptions being like avocados and nuts.
Yeah.
And that kind of
And they are important, right? Nuts to have
small
some, but
amounts.
small amount.
For anybody, it has to be a small amount. Yeah.
How much is a small amount?
An ounce, and if that doesn't,
What does that look like? An ounce?
it's
Is it like a?
it's well within
quarter
the
cup?
boundaries of your palm.
Oh, okay.
So not this palm, but this palm. Yeah, I
and
know.
That's per day.
Yeah.
Man. Okay.
Yeah, it's such a
So
high
you just
fat
want to
food.
eat sunflower seeds because you can have more than.
There you go.
In my palm, I
If you
could
want-
have 2 Brazil nuts or a whole heap of.
Right, or
pumpkin
that's right,
seeds or
37 sesame seeds, right.
Oh, okay. So as long as I follow this plate that you have there, that graphic, has different colors, which I learned early on. That's a good thing to follow.
Yeah.
Eating by color, basically, right? Because the different vegetables provide different stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, different phytonutrients, antioxidants. So the darker, like the pigments, right? Things that maybe stain your clothes or your hands.
Yeah.
Like turmeric, for example.
Yes.
Or blueberries, the anthocyanins in blueberry, pomegranate, these rich dark colors like sweet potatoes. So you have the traditional like orange sweet potato, but then you also have the purple sweet potatoes,
Right.
which have the same anthocyanins as blueberries.
Yeah, and it's just for some people, it's an easier way to think. Like I could say,
Right.
eat beta carotene and eat
Yeah, who can
anthocyanins.
remember all these
Yeah.
long
Right.
words?
Or I
right?
just say
You
eat
just
a
by
eat a
color.
rainbow. Did you
Yeah.
eat something blue today? Do you ever eat anything red or purple
Yeah.
or green? Do
I
that.
can't believe we've been talking all this time, and you have so much more to say.
So
I'm
much
sure.
more, yeah.
I'm glad you were here. Our time is up.
Thanks,
Thank you
Elke.
so much
Yeah.
for coming. I hope we'll see you again or have some kind of ongoing conversation. Thank you so much, Green Spring, for spending the last half hour with us. Have a wonderful day and eat your colors.